Welcome everyone to the Thursday, September 21st, 2023 Planning Board meeting. We have a single item on our agenda, which is to consider the Planning Board's proposed article for town meeting in 2023 concerning revision of the ADU bylaw. We are being recorded via WinCam as well as via Zoom. And I don't think we have any guests, but we do have with us our recording secretary, Nancy Polcari, and town council, Jay Tellerman. So I'm going to do a quick roll call vote to make this legal. Eaching Scott.
Present.
Nick Rosettos.
Present.
Sally Dale. Sally.
You're on mute.
Present.
And I am Diabjarius, present as well. And I forgot to mention, even though it was in my upper left corner, is Taylor Herman, town planner. So he's also with us. So why don't we begin the discussion? We had a public hearing on this article last Tuesday, in which we decided to proceed with a revision which would reduce the age for our senior population from 62 to 60 to accommodate what at the time we thought was a hole in the state's definition of a person with a disability, which only extended to age 60, after which they would be considered senior and therefore would no longer be eligible to live in our ADUs because they would be between the ages of 60 and 62. Since then, we have had two comments from town residents who were concerned about whether or not that gap actually existed. We had a lot of research done by Maura Sullivan, who looked into a variety of different definitions through state law. I reached out to town council Jay Tellerman to see if he could make further heads or tails of this, and he did at some level. So Jay, if you want to, I'll turn it over to you and you can tell us a little more about what you found.
So this, thank you. This kind of fits into the category of that this issue is clear as mud. I find oddly, given the gravity of the particular issue and the fact that issues regarding disability are spread across Massachusetts laws and practice and procedure, there to be varying interpretations and definitions of what is disabled and what is not. There is, as you know, because it spurred the potential amendment, a statute regarding a disability commission that defines disability with respect to folks up to age 59. The comment has been that, well, that commission is only governing folks up to age 59, and that doesn't mean that people don't have disabilities. And the bylaw itself doesn't reference section 9 or chapter 19C. So it stands to reason that we might look elsewhere. Now, there are collections of other statutes that talk about disability, and they don't talk about it in terms of an age range, nor do they particularly lay claim to an exclusive definition of it. However, the Massachusetts, the Commonwealth's governing entities do define disability more broadly across all of their guidance documents. They don't, though that guidance doesn't really recite a specific Massachusetts statute for their definition, but they implement that guidance across a number of statutes, including the Fair Housing Act. Now, I looked at the Massachusetts version of the Fair Housing Act, and it doesn't define it either, but it talks about disability and handicap And I think the state's position is that they're requiring enforcement of the rights of disabled officials wherever they may come from if they meet that general standard under that statute. So long story short, I can't sit here and tell you that there's one precise mass general law that you would rely on in yet another context, here in ADU context. However, I can say with confidence, and I kind of said this in my email of yesterday, that I do think that there's support under mass general laws for the proposition that it is not age restricted with respect to issues of disability. So in that, the bylaw as it stands is somewhat has a reference that is very broad-based, that essentially says, hey, it's disability as mass general laws finds it. I think it is completely supportable that as is, there's no gap. There's no 2-year gap there. That you could be 1 year old or you could be 90 years old. And if you have a disability, then I think that this particular bylaw could cover you. Now, I also recommended that for the sake of clarity, that rather than go back to town meeting and amend it further, because we know how fun that process is, we implement a regulation, which the planning board is free to do, to help aid in the interpretation of it. So when these things come to the desk of the building commissioner, who I met this morning, that he has a definition for this. Now, I also had occasion this morning when I was meeting with him at town hall to go through the form that they use to certify disability, and it's a form that we essentially adopted from elsewhere. That form also doesn't talk about, it just requires a certification from a specialist or a doctor that someone has a disability. And from that perspective, my advice to the building commissioner would be that you're not the disability police here. If someone returns a document that says that someone's disabled, you're not really at liberty to second guess that. It is a signed document by a professional, and you should accept that. So to the extent that you want to add a little clarification through a policy or a regulation implemented, I think that could be a good thing. I don't think you have to, because I don't think that he's particularly concerned about it, but it might help to the extent that there's anyone out there that's questioned this in the first place. That clarification could prove to be helpful. And I don't think you have to amend the bylaw to deal with that.
Okay, thank you. I Ching was our person on point to working with the building department to put in place the requirements for, and I think we also had there was a list of other forms which would be accepted in addition to the written form from a healthcare provider.
When I spoke with the former building commissioner about this, his point was that as Jay said, he wasn't there to police it.
Right.
And the check boxes were if you are of a qualified age or if you're a qualified disabled person. And he just wanted to know which checkbox somebody did and leave it at that. And
Okay.
if should it be questioned by somebody other than, somebody else, then they would pursue that documentation. But for the initial thing, they didn't want the liability of knowing what they have or what the disability is.
Protected information.
Right.
Well, I mean, Jay, the ADU working group went through a lot of discussion as how we keep people's privacy while still providing some sort of documentation. And we had settled upon a list of forms that various government entities would provide, which indicated a disability status, but did not provide any more information other than that you had been acknowledged as a person with a disability. But I guess I wasn't aware that the building department now, it simply has a checkbox and a simple form from a healthcare provider. That's it.
Well, I don't even know if they do need a healthcare provider checkbox. When I talked with Elle about this, I talked to our disability advocates, Kathy Boyle and Lisa Batradola, about these requirements. They said, yeah, if that's the case, it's fine with us. That policy seems totally fine.
Okay, cool. So any discussion on the board? So the decision we have before us is to, if we so choose, we can continue with the language as written and have it submitted tomorrow. The deadline is tomorrow at noon. We could revise the language, or we could decide to pull the article because we may deem it no longer necessary. So what does the board think? Go ahead, Sally.
So I'm very much in favor of pulling the article if it's not necessary, because town meeting is long and confusing anyway. And I want to just make sure that the two people on the ADU working group who were the most knowledgeable and who first identified this purported gap, which is who I Ching mentioned, Lisa Matrondola and Kathy Boyle, that if we pull the article, they're aware of it, and that they agree that what Jay Tallerman said, which is that it's not necessary, they would agree with that statement.
I don't know that anybody's checked in with them since we got these comments from the public. And I don't know if we have any time to do so before pulling it.
So the other comment to follow up on that, I Ching, thank you, is I would still be in favor of pulling it. And we can always revisit the question if, as the applications for ADUs come in, there emerges a problem.
Yeah.
Which right now we were anticipating a problem because of what Lisa and Kathy pointed out. But I don't have any report from anyone that the building department has fielded any problems.
I have some updates about that. I talked with Janine at the building department 2 days ago about some of the permits that have come in about the ADU, and there's only one successful permit, and that is from our former building inspector, Elle, who is building an ADU right now, which is wonderful. There have been other attempts. I think a couple of the roadblocks were one was in a non-conforming lot, so that it was much more complicated than just getting an ADU permit. So I think they withdrew that. Another one was looking to work with Section 8 about it, and it sort of somehow just petered away. And I think a third kind of, I can't remember what the issue was, but there's just not any successful ADU permits. So the number of them are very few. There are still inquiries about it, and we have our pamphlet there, but it's printed out funny, and I think we need to make a more straightforward pamphlet.
I was hoping that our graphic person, whose name is escaping me this very moment, can help with that.
Yeah.
Reagan.
So the point is, I think it's a problem. That's not the biggest problem for the ADUs right now. It's more other bottlenecks.
Okay, Nick.
I guess I do have a concern that we shouldn't bring it up at the annual at the town meeting if it's not necessary. And so I would echo that sentiment. But I just want to be comfortable, and I think I am, based on what Jay has said, that it's not necessary. I mean, I think those are the two issues that are of concern to me, and I think they've been addressed. So I think I'm fine. I think I'm relying on legal counsel and on the members of the working group that know a whole lot more than I do. But I think I'm fine, however we choose to go.
Okay, thank you. So my thought mirrors everyone's. I think that we can certainly let the AD working group, in particular Kathy and Lisa, know of our decision and why. And if they, we can, as I think Sally, you said, I don't know who said it, we can work this issue further if they have concerns, but we don't have time to do that prior to the deadline tomorrow. So I'm fine with us pulling it. So is there a motion to essentially pull the warrant, pull the
Withdraw.
article from the warrant?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, roll call vote, please. Nick,
Aye.
I Ching,
Aye.
Sally,
Aye.
and I say aye as well. So thank you very much, Jay, for being with us on this one. Appreciate your knowledge and advice.
And research.
And research. And at this point, I'd like to request a motion to adjourn.
See you all.
See ya.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call. I Ching,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Sally,
Aye.
and I say aye as well. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, WinCam. And we'll see you all next Tuesday.